This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This is uncut.
Yeah. Go dummy cow.
This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff.
Yeah. Go dummy cow.
This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This is uncut.
Yeah. Go dummy cow.
This is uncut. Can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back. Cause this is uncut. This is uncut. This is uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is uncut. This is uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This is uncut.
Hello, Turks and Caicos. Welcome to another episode of Uncut with Miss Alicia Swann. Thank you so much for coming on to Uncut. And Miss Swann is the voice of hope. Sorry, my sound is Sorry, I was trying to take the feedback off. Miss Alicia Swann is the voice of faith, hope, and love. And her platform is based on unity of Turks and Caicos Islanders, protection of Turks and Caicos Islanders, and preserving Turks and Caicos. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Swann.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's dive a little bit into the reasons why you chose unity, perseverance, as well as, sorry, not perseverance, preserving, as well as protection of Turks and Caicos Islands. What was your reason for choosing these three areas?
Ms. Elliott, before we go into that, please allow me a moment of time to have a moment of silence for all the persons who have lost their lives due to violent crimes, due to the pandemic and other illnesses that has plagued our country for over the past few years. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the question. The reason that I chose the motto up, UPP, meaning unity, protect, and preserve. It's because it's all the areas of which I am very passionate about. And looking over our country, it's all areas that intertwine into making us a people that are strong and united to be able to protect and to serve them.
Yes, and for those who are not familiar with who Ms. Swann may be, give us a little bit of background because, of course, before you serve us as a people in the House of Assembly, tell us a little bit about the community work that you may have done that have prompted you into this platform.
Thank you. I have lived a life of service my entire life. Going into my full history would be very long and lengthy, and I know we have time strength, but I'll try and summarize this as much as possible. I started off working at the age of 17, managing the only hotel in South Caicos. Most recent times, I am currently a verifier for the government high schools for the CVQ program, which is connected with the CXC program for the B-Stream students, where I verify the teachers as well as the students' portfolios for CXC in the business area. I have been doing that since the conception. I'm very active in my community, where I am a part of every board there is, every committee that there is within my community. I have started and I lobbied and had a petition done in my community for 24-hour policing to be held in the community of which I live. I am also active with the police department, which I'll speak briefly on during our interview session. I have always been one that served the people. I am very passionate about making sure that people welfare is heard and voiced and solutions are made for their concerns.
Yes, and a part of your protection as well as being able to preserve platform, of course, you included the implementation of price control. How do you plan to make this successful?
Price control will be something totally new to the Turks and Caicos. We would need to have a field study as well as a pilot scheme. Government can have a dialogue with the stakeholders, the main stakeholders in this industry, meaning the major supermarkets, the mom and pop businesses, nutritionists, to see what would be the most essential produce that we need to have. After that is done, the government can also look in ways of where they can assist with duties on these items. Additional to that, I have noticed that Turks and Caicos Islanders are becoming more self-sufficient in the way of farming. So therefore, that is another area of which can be explored by the government, where they can reach out to these individuals, local persons in our communities, and see how they can sell their produce to the supermarkets. Now, this is something that should take about 6 to 12 months of assessment. Once this is done, then we can better be able to determine how we can go about price control.
Price control is definitely needed, and not only in the area of store-bought products, but even in the area of even when it comes to housing.
Yes.
It is just ridiculous to live on your own or even to live as a family. The cost is just high. Is it also your intentions to place living arrangements onto the price control as well?
Most definitely. As mentioned, we definitely will need to have a pilot scheme across the board. Starting off, the reason why I started off with the consumption of food is because it affects so much of who we are as a people, our health and everything else. Yes. So definitely, As it comes to housing, that is also a very strong area in which I will be looking into to see how we can work with persons who have rental properties and so forth to make it easier for persons to be able to afford housing. In addition to that, we also need to look at affordable housing schemes for our people. This is something that also will take a few months, I would say within 6 to 12 months of assessments and so forth, and seeing how best we can deal with it.
Right, and to move a little bit further, what about the, you spoke to me about a labor union. So in regards to the labor union, there's been a dispute for quite some time with government not seemingly welcoming it. So explain to us a bit about the benefits of the labor union and how you intend to get this passed, being that it has been discussed for such a long time.
The Turks and Caicos Islands is rapidly growing, and I see it continuously growing. In the past, the labor union was something that the government, as you had mentioned, did not seem to be very favorable with. I know this personally because I was one of those persons who was in the making of the first labor union here in Turks and Caicos, which was not able to be passed in legislation. However, when we look at it, I believe that the government needs now to explore this possibility again. The reason for this is because we have seen over time where workers feel marginalized. They also feel as if they don't have a voice. Now, with the formulation of a labor union, what that will do is be able to have one umbrella where workers can be represented. Their concerns can be heard and presented to the government for possible solutions. And we've seen over time, recently we had the tower team members who striked. I stood with them, with the pickets for their cause, and we've seen results. Most recently, since the pandemic, we've seen hotel workers, we've seen taxi drivers who all feel as if they've been neglected. If there had been a labor union in place, their concerns would have been able to be heard. So the benefit is great. Everything has their pros and cons. However, having a labor union has much more positives than negatives, and that will be something that I believe the government cannot side-eye anymore. It's something that needs to be explored, and it's something that needs to be considered moving forward.
Yes, I definitely agree with that, because oftentimes employees seem not to be heard, even in large organizations, and it is time for them to have some sort of representation. And earlier you spoke about the fact that you're involved with the police community. So with that being said, you intend to open substations in every community. Of course, we know that manpower has been a huge issue in the police force, not just now, but it's something that they've complained about for such a long time. When I personally spoke to an officer, I asked her about how many officers do you think you'll need in Provo alone just to ease the burden, because a lot of people don't realize that our officers actually work overtime. They're overworked because they're understaffed. And what do you intend to do to fix this manpower problem?
We are, again, a very ongoing, rapidly growing country. And with that, there is crime. That just comes with it. Unfortunately, that's something that comes along with growth. There are many countries right now around the world that are open to how they recruit. I believe that we need to look in and explore the possibility of special constables. When I say special constables, there can be persons who may be retired policemen or other civil servants or persons within the community who is willing to continue to serve, who are retired and willing to serve. We can recruit these persons as special constables, as mentioned, on a volunteer basis, have them trained with the police department of how to take statements and reports, and we would have persons available to be able to work along with the police and provide them with information as it comes in for the police to be able to action. So with that being said, as I had previously mentioned briefly, that I do work with the police department. The area in which I work with them is we do have community policing on the island, which is headed by Assistant Constable of Police, Commissioner of Police, that is Grant. Under his leadership, I work directly with Inspector Kevin Clark. We have drove around the islands, met with residents, knock on doors, speak with them, hear their concerns, open dialogue with them, and so forth. Now, this has not been as active due to the COVID-19 and the restrictions that we currently have. But with that being said, it gave me the idea, if this continues, and if I am passionate in doing this, I am certain there are other Turks Islanders with the same passion and drive who would want to be a part of that. So my suggestion will be, being that I now have an avenue to provide suggestions and so forth to the police, is to hire special constables, get them on board and have them work. That will free up the police to do police work. In addition to that, I recently heard our premier in one of her addresses had mentioned where the commissioner of our police force is planning on implementing mobile substations. I think that is a very good idea. I think it's a very positive way of going, but I do also think that it is something that will mostly be effective in the hotspot areas. In the long term, I do strongly believe we do need substations, which are manned 24 hours. So therefore, if we work in unity with the community and working along with the police and having these constables, that will eliminate a lot of the workload of the police.
Are you able to give us a timeline of when you think that this will come into effect? If you are elected, of course.
Well, anyone who knows me, I'm smiling because anyone who knows me know I'm a go-getter. I'm certain Inspector Clark probably gets so exhausted of my phone calls because I get so energized whenever we have our ride-arounds and meeting with the residents and so forth. And as soon as we're finished, I'm on the phone with them. Okay, what's next? What are we going to do next? We got to move on it. We have to get this done. So trust me, as soon as if I am elected, and even so, even if not, this is something that I will definitely push because I am very passionate about this when it comes to fighting crime.
Yes, and something that goes hand in hand with our crime issue is the fact that we have a untreated mental health problem here in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I don't believe, at least I haven't seen any studies that have been done on it. However, it's not hard to connect the dots and know that that is probably one of the root causes of our issue, of our crime issue here. So with that being said, sorry, I'm just trying to find my question on that exactly because it kind of slipped me.
That's fine.
With that being said, how do you intend to expand on the program that already exists to help those drug addicts or those with mental health problems? But because of course we know that there are things that are in place. For instance, drug addicts do get sent off for help once they commit to a certain program here in Turks and Caicos. So how do you intend to expand on what we already have?
As you had mentioned, we do have our government sending persons away for treatment. I don't believe that we need to always send our people away for treatment. We have social services available here in the islands. We have professionals in the field that are equipped to work along with our people. What I do believe we need is to provide these departments with additional funding and resources so that they can be more effective and active in their roles. Additionally, when we think about it as well, this is a great opportunity to even offer for other persons to open up businesses in this area, who's also passionate of making sure that our people mental health is at its best capability. So therefore, we can also look in the possibility of opening up the lines of business where people can open up these sorts of rehabilitation programs and events and centers so that our people can get the assistance and help that they need.
One of the issues with opening up businesses here, of course, is access to capital. Is it your intentions to expand on the existing programs that we already have? For instance, there's Invest TCI, but of course we know that their categories are very limited, as well as funding is very limited.
Yes, most definitely. Definitely that is also a part of my quest, is to ensure that we expand. You know, I too agree that it's very, very limited, and it's, in my opinion, it's too limited. There's so many areas of which we need to explore, and we need proper funding. And unless we do look at this in a serious way and saying that providing funding and expanding the market, there's no way that we'll be able to sustain ourselves and achieve what we need to achieve to be a better and healthier community and country.
This new independent candidate thing that has come about, it is something new to Turks and Caicos Islanders. So of course we have a lot of questions regarding it. So many questions running through my mind right now. So I guess my first one would be, if you are successful and you make it into House of Assembly, how do you think you'll be able to impact House of Assembly? Because a lot of persons believe that an independent candidate cannot do the work.
That is a very, very, very good question. And I am so happy that you raised it. I believe the strongest position of being an independent candidate is that your sole focus is the interests of the people. You are not associated, affiliated with any party, mandates, what have you. Your whole purpose and sole purpose of being there is so that the people's voices can be heard. All that they have, their questions and concerns can be aired. It can be presented at the House of Assembly, and they can have true representation. That is one of the main points of being an independent candidate. And I believe there is definitely a place for independent candidates to ensure that there's a balance in House of Assembly.
Yes, and just before we move forward with the independent questions, which we'll jump back to, we have an inboxed question, which is, the Turks and Caicos Islands has a very small population. Do you feel as if police, especially in the unsolved murders, if they are not as aggressive when solving, or are they just lacking manpower? And what can be done to assist in the lack of confidentiality in the police force?
As I had mentioned earlier of my plan in terms of assisting with the combating of crime in the area of community policing, that is one of the main areas that I see that we can work along with our police department. Being that it's such a sensitive area, policing that is, there's so many aspects of it that we will not be able to be privy to. However, I do believe all hands on deck, all of us getting involved as much as possible. Imagine if we have, as I have many persons who say, okay, I am willing to work with the police. I am willing to volunteer my time to be there, to receive information within my community, to help the police to be able to fight crime effectively. Then we will be making great strides, much more than we are currently making. So in terms of what can be done, we can get involved. We can unite. We can be there again with my motto to help protect and to preserve our country by working with the police and trying to come up with possible solutions. With myself just working, briefly with the police so far, and with them opening their arms to me in the area of community policing, imagine other persons like myself, what ideas can flow that can probably assist with the combat of crime. So my answer would be that we should all get involved who are passionate to see that we have a very safe country for ourselves, our families, our children, and our visitors. Protect our name, protect the brand Turks and Caicos by getting involved.
Yes, and just to jump back on the questions about independent candidates, it has been widely discussed on Speak Your Mind TCI whether or not an independent candidate will side with either party once they enter HOA. Is that your intentions?
The sole reason of going independent is that the mandate for me is not around a party. My mandate is people-centered, which means that I have no desire at all of partying with any party at this time. Reason being, I do strongly believe that we need, again, to have more checks and balances in the House of Assembly, something more than what we receive from our parties. Mind you, all of our parties, I do applaud persons that have brought themselves forward, because this is something that you must take very serious when you put yourself out there to serve. So I applaud everyone, government and opposition, who is fighting the cause for Turks and Caicos. However, I do strongly believe with the implementation of more independence, the people of the Turks and Caicos will have a stronger voice of what concerns they have, how it's brought to the table, and that they do have a voice in House of Assembly.
Yes, and let the people of Turks and Caicos know, why does Miss Alicia Swann deserve to be in our House of Assembly and represent us as Turks and Caicos Islanders?
Before, I don't know if I prefer the term deserve so much, because I'm a very humble person. But I am a fighter. And I am someone who connects with people very easily. I'm very empathetic with people. And I will stay very close with my motto, which is up, because I believe we are at a place in our country where we are either going to do or die. We are at a dire position right now where only place for us is up. To me, up again, meaning to unite as one, not to divide. Unite so that we can have a common goal of making sure that Turks and Caicos is united as one country, not divided. We must look in the ways of protecting our people, protecting our country, protecting our visitors. We also must always bear in mind the perseverance to preserve what we currently have. Right now, we have very little, which will probably be another topic. Hopefully I'll be on your show again, but I wouldn't elaborate too much. But protecting our land, our environment, our people, we need protection. And again, because of time, I would love to be back on your show and go more in depth with that.
Yes, of course. You're more than welcome to come back onto Uncut.
Thank you. And in addition to that, my logo. It means everything that I stand for. Please, Turks and Caicos, look for the logo. The logo is with the cross, which is just our faith in God, which I do believe we need to come back closer to. The impulse sign, which is a hope of a brighter tomorrow, of which I would love to serve and be a part of for our country and our people. The heart, which is of love, because we must learn how to love and embrace each other so that we can have a country that we can always be proud of, for generations and generations to come. So why should you send me to the House of Assembly? Because I will be your voice. I will be your independent voice to speak on your behalf, to listen to your concerns, and I am a fighter. I do not give up. No is a word that I do not use in my vocabulary from the time I can remember. There's always a way of fixing something, and I will find that way to fix the problems that you, the people of the Turks and Caicos, tell me that you wish to have fixed. So with that being said, please, I ask you, the general public, to consider an independent candidate. Think about it. Think over the 44 plus years that we have had a government. Do you feel that you have been properly represented? If your answer to that is no, send me to the House of Assembly. Do you feel that your voice has fully been heard the way that it should? If your answer is no, send me to the House of Assembly. Do you feel that you had persons who have always been reachable to you? If your answer is no, send me to the House of Assembly. Do you feel that you need a change? If your answer is yes, send me to the House of Assembly. Do you want someone who understands what it is to be a single parent and have to make ends meet with very little, but make it meet and find a way to make that happen? If your answer is yes, send me to the House of Assembly. If you need someone who will represent you with passion, empathy, without taking sides, without having to compromise my goals to serve you, then yes, send me to the House of Assembly.
Thank you so much, Ms. Swann. It was a pleasure to interview you. And of course, Uncut will welcome you back with open arms. With that being said, Turks and Caicos, thank you for tuning into another episode of Uncut. Do not forget to head over to our TCI, who is having an interview with the Honorable Charlene Cartwright Robinson, and she's being interviewed by Miss Bernicia Cox. So please don't forget to head over there, and I'll see you guys on Saturday. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Turks and Caicos. I love you.
Robinson, and she's being interviewed by Miss Alicia Cox. So please don't forget to head over there, and I'll see you guys on Saturday.
Great.
Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Turks and Caicos. I love you.
This is Uncut, can't get enough. The truth ain't holding back. This ain't no bluff. You are deserving that. Sometimes it's rough. No, I ain't holding back, cause this is Uncut. This is Uncut. This is Uncut. No, I ain't holding back. Sometimes it's rough. This is Uncut. This is Uncut. The truth, you deserving that. This ain't no bluff. This is Uncut.